Hello, I'm Jim Cornwall, and this is the WalkingPost.com podcast. WalkingPost.com is the news website dedicated to walking, with all the latest on events, fitness, trails, health, festivals, gear, books, and more. This podcast is number 56, and it's going live on June the 19th. And still it rains. I love talking to people where it's warm and they say how amazing the weather is. House swap, anyone? Might have been a good idea to temporarily move back to North America so that the World Cup games aren't on at 2 a.m. Anyway, let's get to June the 19th. That is Juneteenth in the US, where it's a federal holiday to celebrate the end of slavery. It's International Box Day. We have plenty of those, and I'm sad to say that I still have boxes with stuff in them from when we moved back to the UK. It's Wrong Trousers Day, which is where you wear something on your legs that don't match, usually for charity. When I played in a band, I had some interesting clothing. I had some tie-dyed jeans where the seam was on the front, and a pair of pink jeans that I wore a lot until they shrank. Or I grew wider, I'm not sure which. That happened to a lot of them at the same time for some reason. It's Garfield the Cat Day, it's Ugliest Dog Day, if there can be such a thing, and it is Pets in Film Day. For events, it's the day in 1846 of the first official baseball game, it's the date in 1961 that Kuwait became independent, and it's the day in 1978 of the first Garfield cartoon, which would explain Garfield Day. For birthdays, baseball player Lou Gehrig, the hugely influential singer Nick Drake, and Boris Johnson, who I never thought would get a mention on this podcast. Last time on the podcast, we talked to the Assistant Medical Director of the Adult Emergency Department at the University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore about walking in the heat and signs of heat stroke. I'm sure if you walked into the hospital here in Ayrshire and said you had heat stroke, you'd get a strange look. Maybe if you sat too close to a fire. This week we're talking about the Ironbridge Gorge World Heritage Site and the Walking Festival there with Laura Fildes, Telford and Wrekin Council's World Heritage Site co-ordinator, and with Lynn Turner, chair of the Ironbridge Gorge Walking Festival. Before we get going, if you do have news, guest ideas, or even subjects to cover or comments, or you want to advertise, please do get in touch via walkingpost.com or just email me at jim@walkingpost.com. Okay, let's go through some of the headlines of the news articles you may have missed that we had on walkingpost.com over the past week. 5 new accessible Lake District walking routes have been unveiled. In the US, a grant has been secured to protect some Indiana woodland, that includes hiking trails, and a new driverless bus made in Turkey offers free travel to a hiking trail in Atlanta. I really love that idea, free travel to hiking spots, although I guess people could take advantage. Gower Walking Festival tickets are now available. West Devon launched a year-long walking and cycling programme. I think I'd be tired after a day or two, but I don't think that's what it means. In the UK, the government has announced a programme costing £4.5 billion for thousands of new routes, and Asia's first certified nature immersion trail opened in the Singapore Botanic Gardens. In Greece, Crete municipality added some new hiking trails, and you can read all of these and more at walkingpost.com. A couple of weeks ago, we had an article about the Ironbridge Gorge World Heritage Site, which has joined a new national initiative celebrating the UK's globally significant industrial heritage, and that is as a part of the UNESCO UK Industrial Heritage Trail. And there are now 22 places on that trail. And as if that's not enough, there is also an Ironbridge Gorge Walking Festival. So we're going to talk about them both in a conversation with Laura Fildes, Telford and Wrekin Council's World Heritage Site Coordinator, and Lynn Turner, Chair of the Ironbridge Gorge Walking Festival. All right, so I guess we will start with Laura. I wonder, could you tell me what the Ironbridge Gorge Heritage Site is and where it is?
The Ironbridge Gorge is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and it's situated in both Telford and Wrekin and Shropshire. And it's widely recognised as the cradle of the Industrial Revolution in the new ways of producing iron and organising industrial processes, which then helped shape the modern world. So that's why it's quite important for us to protect now, because it's really considered the birthplace of that industrial revolution.
Everybody likes the nature and scenery and cliff tops, and does the industrial heritage get a bit lost?
I think we're very fortunate in our area in that there is a very strong appreciation from the local communities of that industrial heritage. A lot of the communities are quite deeply rooted and go back for generations. Like many of the industrial towns, we have that strong community spirit. So they really appreciate and value the industrial heritage that have been passed through the generations. And so that is really our big selling point, is that we have these industrial visitor attractions and sort of all of this combined heritage across the site.
And the site's quite big, isn't it? It's not just the bridge.
No, so we've got 550 hectares in total in our World Heritage Site, and it actually spans 5 different communities. So we have Jackfield and Coalport, and they themselves have tile museums and china museums. And then we have Madeley, which is one of the oldest communities, and that's more of an urban setting. Whereas then you have Ironbridge itself, where the bridge was built to cross the river, and Coalbrookdale as well, which is where a lot of our foundries are. So we're spread across quite a large site here.
And how does that work as a visitor attraction? Is it people just show up and walk around?
Yeah, you can get here in a variety of different ways. And when you land at the site, the whole World Heritage Site is open throughout the year. So a lot of people will arrive and come to take a look at the bridge and have a wander through Ironbridge town. But also we've got other attractions. So the National Trust have just taken over ownership of a lot of our museums. So those have set opening times through the year that you can then go to understand more about our heritage and our history. Or equally, if you're not so heritage or history inclined, you can just rock up and go for a lovely walk, a wander around. We've got some beautiful walking trails as well throughout the gorge. So there's a lot for everyone here. We're very fortunate.
How do people get there?
In Telford and Shropshire, we're often seen as the gateway across to Wales. So we have a lot of passing traffic anyway from the Midlands, but we're also on a direct rail line from Birmingham and Wolverhampton. And then from there, you can either get a bus down from our closest train station in Telford down into the Ironbridge, or if you're more active, you can walk down or cycle down. We've got a designated cycle route called the Silken Way, in which people can walk or cycle from the town centre down into Ironbridge and into this sort of more rural area.
Because it's open and people can just walk around, are you able to estimate visitor numbers and where people visit from?
So it is tricky to be able to estimate because we have so many people using the World Heritage Site for so many different things, as well as the visitors that we get coming in. We also have local volunteer groups, local businesses, and then, of course, all of our residents. But we think we attract around 1.3 million visitors each year, with the museums attracting approximately 330,000 visitors. And these are mainly from the West Midlands, but also the wider UK. And coming internationally, we still get a lot of international visitors as well.
Has the UNESCO been a part of that?
I think so, definitely. It's helped us to be on that international map. But at Ironbridge, we've always been a well-established visitor destination. The bridge itself was actually built to attract visitors in to come and show off the scale of iron casting work that could be done in this area. So a lot of people think that the Iron Bridge was the start, but actually that was just the showcase to be able to showcase those changes in industrial processes that had been invented 50, 60, 70 years prior to that. So we've got a long history of 300 years of visitors coming to the Ironbridge Gorge to see our industrial processes.
What's the UNESCO UK Industrial Heritage Trail?
So this is a new national initiative, and this brings together 22 of our UNESCO designated sites across the country, so in England, Scotland, and Wales. And it helps to connect the places in the UK's industrial past that have that similar industrial interest. So this is everything from mills and mines to geoparks and industrial cities. And the idea behind the trail was that this would help people to explore those places that have now shaped modern life, with the creative cities to explore social impacts and the industrial life and landscape as well, and how that has impacted the country's cultural heritage. So it's a really great opportunity to bring everyone together with this shared interest.
Are there connections between them? And do you kind of co-promote with the other ones, or are there little passports that people can stamp at the different sites?
The idea behind the trail is that they are very similar types of World Heritage Site because of this industry. You see a lot of similarities in the culture and in the way in which the heritage has passed down through the generations, which links them really well. And ultimately, that international designation helps them to bring awareness to the UK's sort of extensive involvement in industry and innovation, and also helps to show how the UK has had a global impact. So that's sort of where we all tie together really well. In terms of trails, we don't have any organised stickers or stamp books as yet, but that's not to say that it couldn't be in the pipeline for the future. At the moment, we really just want to promote ourselves, that we have these wonderful World Heritage sites on our doorstep, to be able to promote them to not just a national audience, but an international audience as well.
Do you find that there are people that have visited many of them that communicate that with you?
Yeah, so over in Europe especially, there is quite a large cohort of people who are very interested in doing industrial trips and going to industrial tours around the world. And so the whole point of this trail is to raise our profile and actually to be able to put our hands up and say we were one of the first. A lot of this innovation came from the UK, and whilst it was then spread to other countries and adopted in other countries, we were the leaders at one point, and so to be able to do justice to that heritage.
Was that a part of the reason for joining the trail in the first place, to just improve that footprint?
Yes, definitely. I think we're fortunate in that we have such a rich heritage here, and we don't always do ourselves justice in that we have so much opportunity to shout about how we led such innovative works. Because of the way that the site has now been cared for, we have a lot of remains from this, and we have a lot of architectural features and heritage assets that relate back to this. And so by promoting ourselves and shouting about ourselves being the cradle of the Industrial Revolution, that really helps to promote what we have to offer here.
All right, I guess we'll turn it over to Lynn now. Ironbridge, I guess, also forms a part of the walking festival. Are there connections between the two?
The Ironbridge Walking Festival, it covers the whole of the UNESCO site. So it's a 9-day festival, which happens every year over the May Day bank holiday weekend, and then running for 9 days from that. And so we cover all the areas that Laura's mentioned, but also beyond in the surrounding areas. So we include Broseley, Much Wenlock, in terms of where we go walking. And I think we really showcase, with over 60 walks, what Ironbridge Gorge and all the surrounding areas have to offer.
Does it include any themes like the industrial heritage?
Absolutely. So we're very lucky that we've got really strong links with other organisations and people who retaining their passion for the industrial heritage and architecture. So we have a range of themed walks, which we call walk and talks, whereby it involves a walk between different places, but we have the specialists, people there leading the walks and guiding the walks, who will give a story and all the information about that history or that specialist skill. And they're always really popular. So they're normally quite shorter walks, but they take a longer time because there's lots of information that's given. We have walks about a local ferry disaster, sculptures, jitties, china making, the geology of the gorge, bell ringing, and even brewing beer. But we've had themed walks as part of the programme since 2005, and we still continue to do them, and they still remain really popular. Looking back at the programme from 2008, which is the earliest programme I got, it's really fascinating to see that some of those walks are actually still some of the themed walks that we've developed and we still do today.
I know that this year's has already been and gone. Could you tell me about this one?
Yes, we had over 60 walks this year. They range from 2 to 21 miles. We had capacity for over 1,300 bookings within that. So most of the walks will have around 20 participants. Some have less depending on the nature of the walks. We took over 1,500 bookings in total, and we had nearly 400 people who came and walked with us. Most people are either doing 2 or 3 walks, but we have people who just come and they just walk with us just the once. And we attract people from obviously Telford and Wrekin, but over half the people who come are from the local area. And even if you are local, you still learn something on any of the walks, be it a themed walk or just a normal walk. Lots of people will say, I've lived in this area for years and I didn't even know I could walk there. So that's really great that we're giving that local knowledge and love of the area to people who might just think of Ironbridge as just being for the bridge. They really are able to explore the area. We have about 20% of the walkers who come from the Shropshire County, and then another 20% will come from all the surrounding neighbouring counties as well. And about 5% of people will come from England, Scotland, Wales, and we even have a couple of people who come from abroad. So we have quite a good following. We have about 2/3 of the people who walk with us who are return walkers, and we have about 1/3 who come and join us who are new to the festival every year. So we have that continuous flow through the Ironbridge about promoting the area as a place to come and explore, and also that contribution in terms of the economic contribution to the local areas as well.
And you were mentioning that really early program that you found from, what was it, 2008? How's it changed over the years?
Oh, it's massive. It's massive. I've just done a bit of a plotted history. And so on the first walk, on the first programme, we had 24 themed walks and 3 longer walks. So you can see how it's developed to the programme that we've got now, offering over 60 walks across the area. And we have a long walk on every single day. And many of those walks are really still present in the programme, which I think demonstrates that people still have that passion for those subjects. The festival for a few years continued in that same vein. And then in 2012, we had the leadership of Neil Cartman, who took over. And Neil was with us for over 13 years. And he was a long distance walker himself. And he really shaped, along with another committee member, Graham Burgess, they really shaped the programme and the features of the programme that we have today. So they grew it from that around 30 walks into the over 50 and now over 60 walks that we showcase today. They also introduced the concept of medals, so people could start off having a medal for completing 100 miles. And over the years, we've increased those medals because we saw that 100 miles was quite aspirational and perhaps something that someone would never thought they could do, often because of time limitations, because it's quite a big chunk out of people's annual leave capacity if they weren't retired. So we've gradually introduced medals, and we now give out medals to people who do 25, 50, 75, 100. And for those that actually complete all the long walks, they get a medal called the Cartman Challenge for over 150 miles. And what we saw with that, it helped people to build on their walking. So it had a benefit in terms of encouraging people to come back year on year, because they may have started out and not knowing about the medals, but then they come back and they'll go, well, I'll go for 25, but then they go, oh, I'll try for 50 next year or 75. So it was really good to see that we were recognising all the different distances, because it isn't just about the long walks. And equally, it's not just about getting a medal. We've got a large proportion of people who just come and they just do one walk with us and really enjoy it. And then they'll come back perhaps next year and do another walk. So I think we cater for all kinds of interests and different abilities. It's one of the only walking festivals around that has that breadth of distances from 2 to 21 miles, so catering for all sorts of walking interests.
You were saying that people come back year after year. Does that mean that you have to change the walks that are on the programme year after year? Or if you change them, do you get complaints that, why haven't you put that one back on again?
I'm a bit of a spreadsheet geek, so I'll admit to that now. So because we advertise through Eventbrite, we get lots of data from Eventbrite in terms of the interest in the walks, in terms of number of bookings. And you kind of know anyway, even without that kind of hard data, what walks are popular. We always get told, even when we put on 60 walks, some of the walks we double up because they are so popular. We're always getting asked in the feedback, can you do more? Can you do more? But we're at the capacity really in terms of what we can deliver as a group of volunteers. So the really popular walks we'll put on twice during the festival. We're also fortunate through Neil's previous contact with Lord Hamilton over at the Appley Estate. He allows us special access to go and walk on his estate. So we do 2 6-mile walks there and a longer walk that we walk from Ironbridge. So we've got some really specialist walks that you can only do on the Ironbridge Gorge Festival. So we're very lucky to have that partnership. And then for the other walks, there's always, the themed walks are always under demand. They're always subscribed very, very quickly. We tend to keep those on. And in fact, we have a walk which is about the Jitties up in Broseley that I didn't realise how long that was going, but that was in one of the very early programmes, and we still run that today, and it still gets full capacity every year. So we tend to have probably a core programme of walks that we know are really popular, and then we change the programme for some of the routes and things on the walks that perhaps haven't got a theme, because we've got more flexibility with that. But most people that we get feedback from, both on the festival and afterwards, say it's not broken, so don't try to fix it. So we kind of go with what we know works. And I think over the years, we've probably stuck to the same kind of formula in terms of the format of the programme. And then we just add some interest. We try and add some interest every year with some new walks or update the walks, because it's always evolving, the landscape's evolving. And so we try and add some new items of interest in and do some variations on perhaps some older walks just to update them.
Have you already started on 2027?
We normally have a little bit of a break now, but because of the UNESCO 40th anniversary celebrations, which start in November or from November for the next of the year, Laura's involved us really early. So we had a meeting with Laura and the committee and the walk leaders recently, and that started generating some ideas about what we can do. So normally we would probably start planning for the festival around about September, October time, which is still quite a big lead-in time in terms of a May festival. But this year we've ignited that passion and enthusiasm a little bit earlier, with it being the 40th anniversary. So we've already got some ideas brewing and thinking about it a little bit earlier this year.
Because of the location, you were mentioning the proximity to Shrewsbury and the West Midlands, I would imagine that it's very easy to, if you were coming in from Scotland or from a different country, there's plenty of places to stay and it's easy to get to the walks.
Yeah, absolutely. On our website, we promote the Visit Telford and the Visit Shropshire, which has got excellent links about all the accommodation, but also the wider things to do. We encourage people to go on those sites, and we've got links on the websites. We always do the signposting to those areas because they're such fantastic websites that gives people all the information. And we regularly have people who will come and just book in and stay with us for the week and just do the festival, and people come back and do that, year on year, and they stay in local accommodation and then travel into Ironbridge sometimes, or sometimes they will stay in Ironbridge itself. There's lots of availability in the gorge for people to stay as well. So we've got the whole package in terms of that accessibility, which works really well.
And is there a lot of coordination between the site and the festival?
Yes, we work in partnership with all the people who've got special interests, and they've been a big part of the festival. So it doesn't really feel as if you're working with different organisations, because the relationships that we've had with them are so long-standing. But yes, we're so lucky to have such brilliant partnership working with a range of organisations. Severn Gorge Countryside Trust is a key part of the festival, And we have excellent relationships with the Ironbridge Gorge Museum Trust, which is now the National Trust, the Coracle Trust and English Heritage, as well as people from the local community who want to share their passion and knowledge. We do work in partnership, but it just feels so natural that you forget that actually it is real partnership working.
We're very lucky in the World Heritage Site that we have some really wonderful stakeholders who look after the World Heritage Site and the gorge. So as Lynn said, National Trust have just come in and taken over from IGMT, who were the Ironbridge Gorge Museum Trust. So we've just been managing that transition and they're really keen to get involved. But we also have very long-standing custodians of the World Heritage Site, including Severn Gorge Countryside Trust, and they do a lot of work to help to keep all of our green space around the gorge accessible, with a really strong band of volunteers who, as Lynn said, work very closely then with the Walking Festival.
It'll probably put both of you on the spot here, but what are some of your favourite places in the area to go walking?
Oh, that's a good question. How do you answer that? I don't think I could give one. Could I give three?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So one of my favourite areas to go walking, even just after work in an evening or on a weekend, is around the Benthall Edge area, because there's a lot of our older remnants of mining there. And I think it's where you get the biggest sense of how what was a very scarred industrial landscape has now been restored by nature itself. There's been very little human intervention there, but nature has recaptured the area. And so you're walking through and there's very dramatic quarry sides and quarry walls and sort of big ditches that have been enveloped by nature, and 100 years worth of nature reclaiming that. And it is quite a spectacular landscape to be in, because you can very much get the sense of both sides, both the modern restored landscape as well as a very old industrial heritage landscape as well. But then you can go to other areas which are a little bit more managed. So for example, we have a Meadows Trust who operate in the World Heritage Site, and they look after 2 large areas of meadow up on the top of the gorge, and that has some of the rarest types of orchid in the country. They have one of the biggest and rarest collections of orchids, and those have sprung up from the industrial spoil and the spoil heaps that were left from the mining landscape, where debris was removed from the mines and discarded onto this hillside. And the meadows have since sprung from it, and through their management now offer some really beautiful species of orchids that you can't see anywhere else in the country. And then finally, walking down by the river. The river is such an integral part of our industrial heritage, in that that was how goods were brought in and out of the World Heritage Site. And the River Severn would have run all the way from here up in Shropshire and Telford, all the way down to obviously the Severn estuary, and was our international gateway almost. And so walking down along the river, you can see some beautiful wildlife down by the river now as well, trying to get a sense of just how busy a transport network that originally would have been.
Mine are a bit more difficult, because when I do the walking festival, because I walk on it as well as being part of the organisation, and I normally do the long walks, I'll start off doing a walk that goes out to some of the villages over in Harley, and that then becomes my favourite walk. But the next day I'll do another walk and you think, oh, I forgot about this place. Oh, this is one of my favourite walks. So you have elements on all the walks. But I think what I love about walking in the gorge is you can go from the Ironbridge in all directions. And you've always got the beautiful woodland. And in May, when we do the festival, you've got the wild garlic and the bluebells and the fields of rapeseed that are coming into the beautiful, yellow. So you've got all these beautiful elements of nature that come together at the time of the festival. So I think for me, I love, like Laura says, the cliff faces that we have up in some of the dingles. I love walking on the paths that the Severn Gorge Countryside Trust maintain that guide you through all the dingles that in May are overgrowing with the white garlic and the green leaves, and it's just beautiful. So I think I'd probably go for walks with those kind of features, and I think just so lucky that you can go from all of the directions from the bridge to experience those features. So I wouldn't say I had a favourite walk. I just I just love being able to go and have those features so accessible on the doorstep. And I also just like visiting the local churches as well. We've got loads of churches in Shropshire and in the Gorge. And it's just nice to do trails that take you from the different churches and looking at the communities around those churches as well.
You might have missed that walking festival for 2026, but that doesn't mean that you can't head down to see the area at other times of the year. Sounds like yet another place to add to my bucket list of sites that I have to see. That's one of the biggest issues about doing a walking podcast and also filming. You see a new trail announced, like the ones in Greece, and instantly you want to go. Hopefully the cost of flights drops to a reasonable level again soon. Like filling the car with fuel. That's a painful experience these days. If you do have news or suggestions for podcast guests, please do get in touch through jim@walkingpost.com, because we're always looking for guests, whether it's a new trail, a new book, or a walking festival, or someone who's done an amazing, unusual, or interesting walk somewhere. So, I hope you enjoyed this week's walkingpost.com podcast, and I hope that you have a great week ahead, hopefully with a walk somewhere, whether it involves a bridge crossing or not. Until next time, happy trails! Walking Post from walkingpost.com is an Air Coastal Media Limited production.